Well, there you are now, again, 24 hours later after us being so excited yesterday when the world was our oyster and the possibilities of a long, roiling summer in Russia stretched out ahead of us. But now all those dreams have died. The world is over. That's what it feels like this morning. We're in mourning.
It's, at the very minimum, going to be a 20-year gap between World Cup appearances. And at the very minimum, that's going to be Qatar. That will be the next time we appear in a World Cup, which for the most part is low on crack from what I've heard. So it is a day of mourning in terms of these great cultural experiences that the Irish fans have had abroad. Like, you look at every single World Cup and every single one will go down in history for decades to come, from Italia 90 to Giant Stadium to Saipan. Something great happens, something crazy happens, invariably something bad happens at all of these World Cups, but not in a terrible way. So we're missing out on all of this. So
yeah,
I think that's the main thing on the front of all of our minds when you say we're mourning this morning.
It's an endless sea of crap basically facing us from an Irish football perspective, and weeks and weeks and weeks of debate about street football and not enough resources here and not enough resources there. We'll do that in the future. Today we're going to pick apart the carcass of an absolutely crappy performance last night and how the hell it happened after the first leg had given us so much sense of positivity and confidence and all the crap that it turned out we were, well, it was based on lies, really. Garry Breen and Kenny Cunningham are going to join us a little bit later on. But in case you need reminding, here's what happened last night.
Free kick in the halfway line, drilled into the penalty area by Brady. On his slot, towards his own goal by Eoin again! It's a free kick in the halfway line, drilled into the penalty area by Brady. On his slot, towards his own goal by Eoin again! It's a goal for the Republic of Ireland! Shane Duffy! Just 5 minutes in, it's Ireland 1, Denmark 0! Through the legs of Harry Arthur, Sisto into the penalty area, looking for the cutback, and it's stabbed towards goal, and it's gone in! It's an own goal of Cyrus Christie! Disaster for Ireland, and Denmark have equalised! Goes to Jorgensen, helped onto Eriksson! Brilliant goal! And Denmark lead 2-1! Sisto driving towards the edge of the area, flicks it inside to Eriksson, curls one left-footed! Absolute quality, world class from Eriksson, and Denmark look like they will be heading to Russia. They lead Ireland 3-1. Poor touch of Ward again, and Eriksson rattles in his hat-trick. Bentner against Randolph, into the top corner it goes, and Denmark have scored 5, and we are getting the mother of all beatings in one of the biggest games, supposedly, in Irish soccer history.
Well, it is not supposedly, it definitely was one of the biggest games in Irish soccer history, and it was the mother and father of all beatings. Kieran O'D on Facebook. How are you, Kieran? Good morning to you. Depressing this morning. And then first thing to hear is the optimistic view. We're going to make the next World Cup. You're like, yay, well on Qatar, hooray.
Well, no, it's kind of like hot and cold that way. The optimistic view that we're going to make it, and then the awful view that it's, oh crap, it's Qatar. We're just not going to have a good time at all. But
yeah, even if we do make it, it's going to be really crap. You have to fly in and out from somewhere. If you want to get in touch with us, you can get us on Twitter. We've got a Twitter poll going at the moment about whether or not you think Martin O'Neill should roll over into the next campaign. It looks like it was a done deal. It looks like the hand was shook, and so therefore we have to assume that that's the equivalent of a contract these days. It seems to be when it comes to Martin O'Neill anyway, so you would expect that the offer is there, and he has indicated his desire to continue in the role. Talking to a bunch of Irish fans last night, they seem to think that might be fair enough, really. We were at the game last night. We prowled the streets afterwards to try and talk to some people and make some sense of what happened. I think we failed to make some sense in the immediate aftermath, but make up your own minds.
Yeah, alright, so welcome on to the OTBAM postmortem.
Nicholas Bentner has just scored to beat the Republic of Ireland 5-1 here in Dublin. Like, it is beyond belief at this point. It is beyond comprehension. Like,
it's pretty much worst nightmare territories for anybody who all day yesterday was building up to the game thinking there was the mist falling just beforehand. There was this incredible use of the tannoy just before kickoff where the anthems were finished, and all of a sudden they played put them under pressure, and it was like, yes! There was literally a guy going completely mental 5 yards down from me, and the team obviously took that to their full extent and scored a brilliant opening goal, seemed to be relatively calm, nearly made it 2-0, and then completely fell apart at the hands of Christian Eriksen and at the hands of like really bad mistakes from our fullbacks in particular. Cyrus Christie in that first half was dreadful. Stephen Ward had probably his worst game ever for Ireland, like, and it's hard to say that because he's such a nice guy, but like ultimately you haven't said a word.
I know, I just can't believe Nicholas Bentner has scored in a 5-1 defeat against Republic. I haven't pinched myself just yet, so potentially this is a nightmare. Yeah.
Midway through the second half, Day went, just imagine what it would be like out there Seamus Coleman was playing, and it was like, oh bollocks.
Yeah.
I actually hadn't noticed or forgotten or hadn't kind of thought about the whole fact that like Seamus Coleman is gone.
It wouldn't have made a difference. Like, I don't know, Christie obviously struggled big time, but I didn't think he was doing that poorly up until the point where we concede. And obviously he gets his feet in a complete mess, and then it's end of story really. I think individual performances are just kind of gone out the window once you get to the 74th minute. I've never seen Irish fans leave a stadium after 74 minutes. You can hardly blame them, but I've never seen it happen.
All week long we've been shouting on about how the team and the fans were like, you know, there was this unbreakable bond between them. Well, it turns out that unbreakable bond is pretty breakable. Fourth goal, or even the third goal, I think you started to see people leaving for the very first time. So remember the Euros in 2012, the Irish fans got shit from people for singing the Fields of Athenry and like waking the team.
Yeah.
Today they're going to get shit for leaving early, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Are you just supposed to stay and go, yay, oh, you did great to get us here? Like, I don't think anybody feels that way.
No, of course not. I mean, of course they deserve better. Like, 74 minutes was actually probably longer than they should have stayed. And God, it was just so annoying seeing the beautiful strokes by Christian Eriksen there to finish two of those goals. Yeah, well, it's definitely time for that. But potentially I'll have a more measured take in the morning, but right now it's just like fucking...
No, we're not looking for measuring, we want your raw emotions.
It's completely... it's hard to see any light at the end of the tunnel where we come back from this, to be honest. It's a stale squad. It's clearly the personnel aren't there.
That news talk is fucking on the Mail, like fucking Jesus Christ.
The Mail?
Yeah, fucking on the fucking Mail, like, man, Jesus Christ. I'm telling you right now, yeah, they deserve to win. Nah, they didn't. They didn't at all. It was a bit of a disaster, to be honest.
Fair play to him. Like we weren't expected after.
We should all be ashamed of ourselves after that display. 5-1 down, and what happens when the full whistle blows? Half the players go off the pitch. We're left with 8 on the pitch. After a respectable campaign, they should be ashamed. That's all I have to say. Especially McGeady. He comes on a sub and he's gone. Like, there's people that pay hundreds to go and follow them away. And when we lose 5-1 from home, at least, come on, bit of dignity. Come out and give the fucking fans a round of applause. But no, you walk off into the changing rooms. James McLean should not have to be dragged onto the pitch. He's the one player who's put his heart and soul into that match, and he's the one player that stayed after being dragged back. Shameful.
Well, that was an interesting little interjection at the end. People are very angry after a circumstance like that, and it's an incoherent rage. It's not necessarily properly directed. It's like, are you really angry at the players who are embarrassed about the fact that they left the field immediately after a 5-1 defeat? Or, because I imagine if you were a bunch of players who've just been hammered 5-1, you don't really want to go over and go, yeah, look at us, we were great to get here, come on. Like, no? It's a bit weird.
You do, like, I guess the whole hanging your head in shame thing is kind of something in a very macabre kind of way people actually want to see their players do. As in, it's like, don't come over to us, you know, trying to give us praise or whatever. Go and be ashamed of yourself, and kind of there's some sort of acceptance in that, potentially. I haven't really thought about it. Like, you talk about an incoherent rage there. Like, I'm not quite sure how incoherent everything was there. I'm personally just glad that I was kind of speechless rather than the other end of the spectrum, which was kind of...
like me.
Yeah, exactly, and kind of stuff that I might regret in years to come. But, like, I suppose this morning we can kind of have a more measured outlook on what actually happened last night. And I just think, like, if you look and watch back that game, when I watch the way that the Irish management set up last night, particularly after Ireland conceded, it's almost like watching somebody play Football Manager, as if they see something's gone wrong and then they just click a different preset and the whole thing changes. And this is something they haven't practiced. The team aren't familiar with this, and it's a complete culture shift without having the nuance and the initial tactics to have some sort of offensive strategy, which we saw coming down the tracks a long time ago that would be a problem if it came to it.
The McGeady substitution, I think, is the one that everybody can point to and go, that makes absolutely no sense. Like, it makes no sense under any circumstances. It makes no sense if you think McGeady's the man to change that game. Why didn't you play him in the away leg? Why did Colin O'Dowda get picked ahead of him? It makes no sense in that, like, who's going to get the ball to Wes Hoolahan and Robbie Brady and McGeady in the second half when you've taken away Harry Arter to get the ball off the centre backs? Like, it makes no sense when Cyrus Christie stays on, when also Stephen Ward stays on, when there's a bunch of players who aren't playing really well. And look, it just seems like they panicked.
No, they completely panicked, but I don't think it would have made much of a difference, to be honest. Once they went offensive and Christian Eriksen had space, that was it. Like,
but
game,
they
set,
gave him
match.
the space by having no central midfielders. It's
True.
like you take away the two central midfielders whose job it was to close down the space, and then you give McGeady some kind of semblance of responsibility for defensive stuff. Funnily enough, a mediocre team like Denmark are going to be able to pick you apart. Loads of text coming in on both Twitter. We're all live on Periscope and live on Facebook.com/off the ball. Found out big time, says Carl Byrne. 2 points from 12 against the Poles and the Scots. Different qualifying campaign. 2 wins from 6 games at home this campaign. Not good enough. Caveman football will only get you so far. O'Neill tactics were found out. Time for radical change. We're not even good at long ball anymore. We were pretty good at long ball in the away leg.
Like, there's an argument to be made that Daryl Murphy was better last night than he was on Saturday night. Is that the one improvement you could potentially point out?
Yeah, I didn't think Daryl Murphy did anything particularly wrong, given that is his skill set, and that's exactly what you get. Digger on Twitter, who we can actually call properly Fuck the Hypocrisy because we're on the internet as opposed to the radio. How are you doing, Fuck? Says, taking the lead, 89th minute was our only hope. I mean, it might be a fair point.
Yeah, the whole scoring too early thing is obviously a nonsense notion, but there is some sort of truth in it.
I mean, it's a nonsense notion that has kind of got a hallmark of, hey, let's not do this again.
Yeah, it does have a lot of truth to it. But like, a lot of people are going to be saying, if Cyrus Christie doesn't get his feet in a mess and doesn't have that poor enough stroke of luck, then, like, okay, first of all, the ball should have been cleared before it got to Christie, but still people will say if we didn't have that bad stroke of luck, it wouldn't have became what it became. But I would say to that is that if it takes just one stroke of bad luck for Martin O'Neill's game plan to fall to tatters, then that's a seriously poor game plan. Like, football is a game of good luck and bad luck. If you get all the bad luck in the world, you should still have some sort of recovery method here. All we had was one really poor slice of luck. Like, that ball could have gone wide and we just can't recover from it. The ball breaks, Stephen Ward loses the ball, and the rest is history.
They're such handsome bastards as well. Walking out afterwards and standing there in the midst of the streaming Danish fans who are all like a foot taller than us, perfectly sculpted cheeks, male and female, amazing hair. It's like, you guys won the genetic lottery and you're going to the World Cup. This is sickening. It felt like we were like a beautiful souffle, you know, like, looks amazing, the shape is perfect for a while, and then it just collapses as soon as you used to kind of...
I'm not sure does it look amazing, to be honest. It's like a pre-packaged
The first 20 minutes were amazing. Like, so that was literally some of the best sports experience I've ever had. The anthem was crap because whatever they were they bagpipes or were they uilleann pipes? I don't know. Whatever they were pipes, and so
they're the Ackle band.
Well,
Kevin Kilbane will not be happy with this slide on them.
I'm sorry. I'm sure they're an amazing band, but it's not a good way to experience the anthem. The anthem needs to be guttural from your belly, from your diaphragm. Instead, it's like, and you're like, okay, grand. But the roar immediately after that, followed by, I would argue, one of the best uses of the tannoy in world sports history, when they used the just the bass line from Put 'Em Under Pressure, Darragh Doom, obviously, from Planksty. Suddenly, that atmosphere is absolutely sensational, to the point where I think Thomas Delaney afterwards is saying that goal that we conceded was a complete result of miscommunication. We couldn't hear each other speak on the field. So the Ireland fans were doing their bit with the team, which kind of leads me around to the whole, the fans are going to get shit for leaving early. And they did immediately. It was like, oh, these aren't the best fans in the world. They're all leaving early. It's like, maybe they've decided that the best thing to do here is to turn away and not watch the dog being put down. It's like, that poor dog. That dog deserves dignity. He's been a faithful dog. He's chased cars lots and come back every time, and, you know, looks a bit scrappy and it's a bit mangy. We love that dog.
God,
we're turning away now as the vet goes. Bzz. No?
Well, okay, it's fairly convoluted analogy right there, but I think after obviously, as I mentioned there, 74 minutes is when the real exodus happens. But even after that point, there's still Irish fans in there singing, and it's still really, really loud. And like, there is some credit in that. Like, potentially it's just blind faith, but you know, that's what football's all about.
I mentioned the Danish fans. We did see them outside the chop house in the corner of Shelburne Road. Have a look.
You tried your best, but the Danish team today, they make a big difference.
On Saturday, you guys were no good. Today, you were sensational.
Saturday, you just played 11 defenders on Saturday. And today you played 11 defenders. You didn't want to create the match. We created two matches. We created 2 matches.
I have one thing to say. Come with Neymar, come with Messi, come with Ronaldo. We got Eriksen, give them the Ballon d'Or. The players from Ireland, they were so passionate. They were playing with the hearts outside of the shirts and so.
Yeah.
That's and the fans.
It only lasted 20 minutes.
Yeah, but
I've
never seen anything like that before in a stadium. But
then you killed us.
Yeah, but the first goal, pure luck, Denmark's.
Yeah.
But then second one,
Eriksen genius.
second one, out of this world.
Really annoying. It's really annoying. We thought we were 1-0 up. You were coming. You were going to be a good party. We were going to have a good night tonight. But then you spoiled our party. So screw you guys.
Maybe.
It's unbelievable.
We are really going to have a very good party tonight.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, congratulations. Why were you so crap in the first leg? We thought we were going to win.
Yeah.
What happens? Where's the real Denmark?
It was like playing with the mouse. The cat's game with the mouse.
Yeah, they were the cat, funny enough.
It was a pretty bad night for other people as well, Ger. What happened to your car last night?
Well, you know, I mean, thanks, Tommy. Yeah, I got clamped. What a pain in the hole. 120 quid, right? And we waited around afterwards for ages after the match, so all the traffic had gone, you assume. You ring the clampers and they're like, yeah, I'll be there in 15 minutes. An hour later, oh, there's loads of traffic, buddy. He's on the bridge. He was on the bridge half an hour ago when I phoned, where is he? So, yeah, it was, I think that's called adding insult to injury. Seamus Mockin Teague. Mockin Teague. Tittig.
No, Teague.
Teague.
I can't believe you haven't stumbled upon the surname before.
Teague. T-S-I-T-H-I-G-H. There should be a second. Why does it all get melded into
I don't know.
Jaron Owen, you're as forceful as Tony O'Donoghue. In all seriousness, having heart is one thing, but we should have more than that, like coherency. It is hard to be super critical, but if we want to get into the higher echelons of the game, we will need to be spoken like a true Kerryman. All right, so he's one of your buddies.
No, he's not one of my friends, but
everybody's like everybody. Buddies.
He would be my friend if I knew him.
Is there any players with a Mayo background? If so, get rid of. Kilban. Peter Scully says Martin O'Neill and Keane need to sit down with Stephen Rochford. There is always next year. I mean, there isn't really always next year. The World Cup comes around once every 4 years, and it's now stretching off into the mists of time. Like Saipan is an alien country for most Irish football fans. Like, you've no recollection of Saipan, do you?
I do, of course. Yeah, but it's like it is very early. As if that happened like 2 years earlier, I wouldn't remember it. But just on that point, in terms of there's always next year, like there is some sort of comfort in that sometimes. But the truth this time is that there is literally no qualification campaign until 2019. So 2018 is going to be a very, very grim year to be an Irish football fan.
Yeah, let's bring you through how the newspapers are dealing with this. Going to start with the Irish Independent.
Yeah, we'll show you the back page of that. It's James McLean and Seamus Coleman. We let ourselves down, reads the headline. Perfect 10 Eriksen inflicts humiliating defeat, but O'Neill expects to stay on.
Just very briefly, right, there was a bit of a debate about what James McLean said in his post-match interview with Tony O'Donoghue. He's from Derry. He said, we shat ourselves. Some people read it as, we shat ourselves. And I understand why you might think that. He's from Derry. He didn't say we shat ourselves. He said we shat, which is shot, like a gun, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we're going with.
Well, I hope so, yeah. Like, both could be true, to be fair. They shat and shot themselves.
I mean, it's possible. There's a bit of ambivalence, ambiguity around, did they shit themselves or did they shoot themselves? I mean, maybe that would have been a better Twitter poll when people think they want Martin O'Neill to come back.
One is the result of the other, as far as I'm concerned. I think we can show you the front page of the Irish Times, Sports Wednesday.
Yeah, outscored, outclassed and out of the World Cup. That is the Keith Duggan piece. O'Neill rages against Delight and O'Donoghue. This is the Tony O'Donoghue interview, which I think probably most people have seen online at this point. And then Darren Randolph has also one of the few players to come out and speak afterwards. We'll hear from Darren Randolph in a couple of minutes' time. Interestingly, in the Irish Times, the player ratings, we might talk about that as well a little bit later on, because Malachy Clerkin was doing them, and generally there's this kind of consensus in the player ratings that you have to give them something kind of high. Malachy straight out there and no bones about it, giving a couple of threes out to a couple of players. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. And I don't know if the players can actually complain about it. You know that they read this stuff, and you know that it becomes the type of thing that gets passed around. Robbie Brady there rounded off a mediocre campaign with another sulky nothing performance. His moaning might carry more heft if you put the odd dead ball where it was supposed to go. That was the other thing that was very noticeable, that the players were bickering with each other. Once the first goal went in, Kieran Clark was bickering, McLean was bitching at a lot of people, Robbie Brady was definitely giving out to people. There was no sense of that team spirit, the indomitable team spirit which had taken them so far. Suddenly, somehow, when everything ramped up, Jeff Hendrick did okay when the job was keeping the Danes scoreless, but offered little when the parameters changed. Bypassed frequently as a sitting midfielder after half-time. 3 out of 10, you know. That's an E in anybody's language.
Yeah, you can't really argue with that. But like on that team spirit point, I mean, like team spirit is what Wales showed at the Euros last year, whereas I think Ireland show more heart, it's kind of individual, kind of giving everything for the jersey, and I think there's a bit of a difference there. They should be linked, realistically. Like
they didn't seem to be up to that point, though. Like I hadn't noticed that throughout the campaign.
Maybe, I don't know. It's a tough one. Obviously, it's completely immeasurable and it's easy to kind of hit their team spirit at this moment in time. But we may as well show you the front page of the Irish Examiner sports section. Danger here reads the headline: Ericsson hat-trick sinks Ireland's World Cup dreams.
Good headline.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Like you can take little to no comfort from a good headline on a morning like this. But as far as they go, I guess we can give this one kudos.
Let's move on to the Times, the London Times. The Times Ireland edition. So the front page, they have a crying fan. That's the father and son who were in the 3 campaign, I guess. Is it the ones who green up for it and then end of the dream? It's one of the players who's crying. It's Robbie Brady, 3 out of 10. Robbie Brady, he was crying. Jeff Hendrick was crying, I think, and James McLean was. They were all crying afterwards as well. So pretty straightforward from the Times perspective. The dream is over. The World Cup is going to be another amazing festival of football in Russia, and we're going to be watching it from the couch.
On the back of the Irish Daily Mail, it says, down and out, Ericsson's hat-trick kills off World Cup ambitions, with a picture of a fairly dejected-looking Martin O'Neill there, who's set to get a new contract, of course.
Ross Organ on Facebook, I said I wouldn't read the papers or listen to podcasts, etc. for the next few days, but I'm getting sucked into the postmortem already. There's months and months. There's actually years of this stuff to go, Ross, so welcome aboard the postmortem train. Next to the Irish Daily Star. Devastated. O'Neill offers no excuses. McLean in tears after humiliation. Ireland won, Denmark 5. Denmark win 5-1 on aggregate. Can't argue with the facts.
On the back of the Irish Daily Mirror, it says, crushed, the end of the world for O'Neill and Ireland as brilliant Danes go goal crazy. It's McLean and Brady on the back with a laughing Christian Eriksen. Of course, Ugo Harida last night said, thank you very much for all the space, Ireland.
I know.
And then got the hell out of Dublin.
What a prick.
I know.
But actually, fair play to you. I guess we would have been doing exactly the same thing. Sorry, the front page of the Star is actually a really decent headline as well, considering, you know, Danish pasting. Because did we get to the Sun yet?
No.
Okay, let's get to the Sun. I think that's next, isn't it?
Yeah, so do we want the front says end of the world, but on the back it says Daneful and 2 more years left, says the headline.
So we walked in this morning and went, Daneful. What does it mean?
Yeah, well, the caveat is that it's 6 a.m. and we're absolutely dejected from the night before. Of course, it means painful for anybody out there who somehow has not...
I was like, full of the Danes? What did we... Are we full of something or other?
And a very telling kind of stance here. Daneful and 2 more years left, reads the sub-headline there. So that's going to become a big theme, you'd imagine, over the next couple of weeks, this new contract with Martin O'Neill.
Yeah, horror show, Nightmare at the Aviva as boys in green crash out. They've got a 12-page special inside, which I'm sure is pretty hard to fill. Dane and Dusted is the sub-editor's headline in the back of the Herald today. O'Neill adamant Irish can recover from shattered World Cup dream. Contract talks in coming weeks. In fairness, he was pretty clear that he thinks that they can recover. Like, in that weird line of questioning, which I guess was building to a crescendo, which never actually happened because he ended up wrapping up the interview. So I don't know where we go from here. No successful team plays the style of football Ireland do, says Cormac O'Malley. Not in Leinster Senior League, League of Ireland, Premiership, Bundesliga or International. Why do we persist playing unsuccessful football and not try an alternative? I'm not sure that's true. I think Man United play a pretty similar style to us at the moment. Jose Mourinho has played a not very different style of football with vastly superior players to what we were trying last night.
Yeah, but the thing is, Jose Mourinho can instigate an attacking plan that will not leave them utterly exposed at the back. Like, he can tweak things. He has nuance to his tactical setup.
And I don't think that actually what we did in the second half was anything similar to what we'd done in the entire campaign and even the first half of the game last night.
That's my point. It's completely different. It's a world away. That's not the way it should be. That's like what I say when I make the Football Manager reference. It's literally clicking on a completely different tactic, and then it's like, oh, that player, his icon turns red in that position, so I'm going to make 2 substitutes at half-time here to make sure I can fit in with this new formation I've just stumbled upon.
Yeah, the old 1-7-1 or whatever the formation we were playing in the second half.
I think it was, to be fair, I think it was 2-7, 2-8.
Who were the two?
Stephen Ward and Shane Duffy, wasn't it?
Yeah, Duffy was rambling forward a good bit in that second half
true.
as well. Damien Fox, get Michael O'Neill in. At least Northern Ireland play football with so-called lesser players. Now, I don't know if you watched Northern Ireland at the Euros. I saw them in the game against Germany, and they didn't play any football that game. Like, they didn't try anything. They just literally put everybody they had behind the ball, and were rather fortunate that Germany didn't beat them 12-0. Like, they played a bit of football in the second leg against the Swiss the other night, but I don't think that Michael O'Neill is some kind of saviour to ride to our rescue, to ride to the rescue of Irish football at this point.
Yeah, because one of the fans we were speaking to last night said they wanted Mick O'Neill in, and I just kind of put it to him, is the Republic of Ireland actually an attractive option to somebody like Michael O'Neill currently? It probably is a step up from Northern Ireland, but it's certainly not the step up you would have imagined, say, 10 years ago.
Better for him to take the Scotland job, really. He lives in Scotland.
Yeah. There potentially is a higher ceiling in Scotland as well.
Lower expectations.
That is definitely true with Scotland.
Watching OTBN this morning is therapy of sort. Last night was bad. Our footballing future is bleak, but we're alive at least. Thank Christ for the small mercies. So just to pick at the scab a little bit more, here is Darren Randolph speaking with Oisin Langan last night in the mix zone.
Darren, hard luck. You just never got up to the pitch of it, I guess, tonight. After the goal, Denmark just took it over and you couldn't catch them.
Yeah, they obviously got the lead and we changed things, trying to get back in the game. And we, they obviously punished us for trying to get forward and get back in the game.
Was fatigue an issue? Because it looked at times like you were finding it hard to close them down or get near to them. Maybe Saturday night took a lot out of you, considering how much you played without the ball and played on, I guess, a heavy enough pitch.
I don't know, you could maybe say that's a factor, but I just think today when you're chasing the game, it's always going to be hard.
You'll want to regroup after this. I mean, I know it's a disappointing night, but ultimately you got to the playoff, you got some good results along the way, and you've shown a lot of positives in this campaign. Granted, it's had a negative end.
Yeah, we had some good results and performances, so I'm sure in a little bit of time we'll look back and be able to take some positives from it.
All right, Kenny Cunningham joins us for his thoughts in the immediate aftermath of one of the most depressing nights in Irish football. Kenny, what did you make of what happened last night?
Well, it was it was painful enough, but it could have been more painful, I think, because once that third goal went in, lads, I think it was the writing was on the wall. And that kind of last period of anxiety, and which we maybe anticipated would happen, just never materialised, because there was no way back after that kind of third goal. We looked a little bit kind of rudderless and a little bit disillusioned, and really the kind of final whistle couldn't come quickly enough.
In terms of the half-time substitutions, a lot of focus on the decision to put Aidan McGeady out there and take off the two central midfielders. Is there any way that it makes sense to recast the team and reshape the entire 4.5 years of the O'Neill era the way that it happened last night?
Yeah, I don't think the big issue personally, I don't know what the cheer chat was after the game. The substitutes for a half time for me are very, very much like kind of a subplot. The bigger issue for me was kind of how we shaped up at the start of the game. I mean, we've been reasonably successful in a kind of 4-3-3 formation over there. Didn't create too many chances, but for me it didn't need an awful lot of tweak in that formation. I thought Martin would keep it the same. And for me, we just had to take our game another 20-30 yards higher up the pitch. The shape was actually good, very good over in Denmark. They found it difficult to find those spaces between the lines. We're nice and compact, and we really frustrated them. So I was really surprised. A minute into the game, you're immediately looking at the shape of the team. James looked to be in the central position. Then very quickly you saw we were playing the diamond in midfield. To be honest, lads, as soon as I saw that diamond, I was worried, because anytime we've gone to that system under Martin over the last couple of years, for me, we've actually struggled. First time we saw it was against, funnily enough, Germany, the famous win at the Aviva. Now, people might be laughing at me thinking, look, we actually won that game 1-0, but for the first half of that game, we just couldn't get near Germany. We were all over the place, and it needed Martin to change it and go back to a more traditional 5-4-1. Sheahan came off the bench second half, and we won the game. Even the Austria game, we won 1-0 last year, lads. We started off the diamond again, and again it was a struggle. It was only when Glenn Whelan came off, and again Martin tweaked it. we got more of a foothold in the game. I think the last time was against Serbia, we played a Diamond, we lost as well. So I was really surprised when I started Diamond, because we look a little bit uncertain in that system, lads. We look a little bit unsure of ourselves in terms of what our roles exactly are in and out possession of football. And at this level of football, you can't be. You have to be absolutely certain in terms of your team organisation, in terms of what's required of you when you have possession, out possession, what position you need to be in, who needs to close down when, how we work together as a unit up and down the pitch. And that particular system, I think last night very quickly you saw that kind of uncertainty very quickly creep into the ranks, and Denmark on the night were too good enough to exploit it, and had good enough players, Ericsson in particular, to recognise that, find the spaces, and ultimately just open us up.
Is there any way back once it goes 2-1? Is that the end of the game? I mean, like, you talked there about the changes that were made in, say, the Germany game and whichever game that you mentioned that Glenn
Austria
Whelan,
was the second one.
the Austria one, yeah. So, can you fix that at half time by recasting the shape?
I think you can to a certain extent. You might say the horses kind of bolted 2-1 up there playing with confidence, but the game certainly wasn't over. And like I said, I wouldn't be overly critical. I wouldn't be looking at too much detail in terms of the nature of the kind of substitutions. For me personally, it was just, it's how you start really, in terms of it's how you start, what impression you make on the opposition in that opening period. Again, you kind of lay down a marker, and I don't mean lay down a marker in terms of running around making tackles and putting people on their backsides. I'm talking about playing in a man on that opening period again, where the opposition think, they're ready for us, they've looked at us, they know what's coming, they're set up for it, and we're in for a game tonight. But although we got the opening goal and maybe had 1 or 2 half chances, lads, very quickly they settled into their rhythm, and very quickly I think they looked around the pitch and thought, well, this is our chance tonight. We can get at this Oilers team in terms of how they've set up. They look a little bit unsure of themselves, and we never regained any type of kind of tactical kind of discipline between then really and the end of the game.
Just on that point regarding the diamond, Kenny, it just makes no sense to me that if this was the go-to plan, were we to concede a goal, that they hadn't actually practiced this to somewhere near familiarity in the positions. You say that they looked all over the shop, that they didn't really know what they were doing in this formation. Like, why does a manager like Martin O'Neill proceed with that if this is going to be his go-to plan if we concede?
Yeah, well, I just think whatever system you play, lads, you need to do the work. That's an obvious thing to say in terms of your team organisation from a tactical point of view. You need to do the work leading into the game. And look, I'm not around the squad, but I think it's fair to say difficult to get information out of Martin. He doesn't overtax the players in terms of the lead up to the game, in terms of time on the training pitch and really drilling the players. But I don't think it's any coincidence, lads. If you look around the world football, take the Premiership for example, the top teams, the top managers in England, Guardiola, Mourinho, you can name them, Pochettino, Klopp, Conte. The one kind of thing which is the constant theme with these managers is in terms of how they prepare the team, the amount of time they spend on the training pitch working the players, drilling the players from a tactical point of view. And these managers have the best players in the world at their disposal. And their attitude isn't, well, I've got the best players, just go out and play. I don't need to teach you anything. They don't. They know the value of organising your team and making your team into an efficient kind of cohesive unit in and out possession of football. And there's big percentage gains in that. We're not talking 1 or 2% here, lads. We're talking 10 to 20% in terms of if you get it right, you get your setup right. So that's how important it is in the game. It's always been important, lads. And I feel as if you're asking me where the improvement comes in this Ireland team, I think we're missing the point if we're talking about we've got to get our substitutions right, our individual players have to play a little bit better, or we don't pass it enough. For me, the biggest improvement is in terms of our team organisation, in terms of our preparation for games. Roy was famously quoted during his career as saying, fail to prepare to fail. And I actually agree with it. But we need to start implementing that philosophy pretty quickly. And if we can, and there's a big coaching setup there around Martin, if we can start doing that going forward, for me, that's a big improvement we can make in the team. I mean, people say, I hear an awful lot of, well, have we got the players? And I think it's missing the point. The question should be, have we got the players to play a better level of football or a more efficient quality of football than we're seeing at the moment? And I think we do, and I think that's where, for me, the biggest improvement can come.
I think I agree with you on the point about the players, because obviously if you look at the last number of international tournaments, you've seen teams like Iceland put in performances because everybody seems to fully understand exactly what their role within the system is. I guess the counter argument is in terms of, like, we have tried the diamond system before, and I guess O'Neill obviously felt like it worked notwithstanding the fact that you've pointed to some evidence otherwise, what was the alternative last night in terms of a structured approach to the game that we have tried in the past? Would a standard 4-4-2 last night have been any better from an Irish perspective?
Well, I liked the system we played over in Denmark, lads. All I'd say is I just felt we needed to take it up the pitch. We allowed the two Danish centre halves to walk into our half for the entire the 90 minutes. And I know we dropped to the edge of our penalty box when nice and compact. They found it difficult to play through us. But in the game of Viva, where we need to get on the front foot and create a few more chances, for me, we just needed to be a little bit braver, go and engage their two centre halves higher up the pitch. And the kind of 4-3-3 formation, one sitter, they're kind of V in midfield and two wingers. You can do that. What needs to happen? One of your number 8s, one of your advanced centre midfielders needs to break out and engage the spare centre half. But you've got a good shape in behind that. You've got all the areas locked down. You've got two wingers. You've got two natural centre midfielders behind that. And as long as your back four are squeezed up, you remain nice and compact, even moving up and down the pitch. People say, oh, you go after their centre half, you leave yourself open. Well, you don't. As long as all the units are compact in behind, you should move up and down the pitch together. Those distances should remain the same. The only place you're leaving yourself a little bit open, lads, is the space in behind your defensive line as it gets a bit closer to the halfway line. But this team couldn't hurt us in behind. They hadn't got the legs to hurt us in behind. So for me, that was a very small risk worth taking last night. Just keep the formation the same. Again, do our work, be prepared, know how we're going to go and press the opposition. I felt we would have won ball higher up the pitch and counter-attacked certainly more than we did in the game over in Denmark, which is actually what we're good at. We're not particularly good at creating chances by getting the ball and working the ball through the thirds up the pitch. But what we are good at is getting at teams in their half the pitch, running them down, pinching balls off them, and then breaking at them while they're out of their defensive shape. So for me, that was probably it, the way forward last night. The diamond last night left us a bit isolated, lads. A lot of bodies in the central area. Don't get too technical. You narrow up with the diamond, but you leave yourself a little bit open down the sides. So the opposition fullbacks are always an out ball, which they weren't over in Denmark. And once their fullbacks get the ball, then your narrow midfielders, Brady and Moyler last night, get drawn out into those wide areas. That opens up space on the inside, which Denmark didn't have in the game over in Denmark. So there's a lot of different stuff there, lads. But for me, I was expecting more of the same, because I think defensively we were solid over in Denmark. But I just think we needed to tweak it and actually take our game 20 yards, 20, 30 yards higher up the pitch. And that would have given us a real kind of fighting chance. The change in formation for me kind of hurt us a little bit. You can see a little bit of uncertainty, a little bit of indecision in terms of players. When do I press? Where do I show them? And players in behind, do I follow them? Where's the danger? Any type of uncertainty like that, lads, you're a little bit unsure of your position and when to press. At this level, you're dead.
Yeah, a lot of comments coming in. Kenny, I'm going to bring you some of them now. David Grant says we were 4th seeds. We made it further than any other 4th seed. We've maxed out our capabilities. Brendan Mockin-Fawley says Martin O'Neill blaming the players, saying they're not good enough, is a cop-out. Players are definitely not without fault last night, but management must be accountable too. The manager was happy to take plenty of credit 3 days ago when the players got a draw away from home, so he must be held accountable when those same players take a 5-1 drubbing at home to the same team. For a supposedly tactically astute manager, tactically we were shambles last night, and sadly the team and performance was a reflection of their manager. Complete shambles. John O'Shea wants to know, should we just go for someone like Stephen Kenny with Dundalk? Lads, honestly, says Cormac Cunningham, I think we got as far as we could with the players we have. You can't blame Martin O'Neill for the performance last night. Italy, Holland, other big teams not going to Russia. So a wide variety of opinions there, Kenny. Just in terms of, so mid-game, right, when he makes the decision to change the team at halftime, like, we couldn't really see any semblance of a structure that looked like a diamond in the second half. At that point, is it just gone?
Yeah, I think so. I think at that point, the lads, that kind of that level of uncertainty and kind of frustration was grown within the players, and it happens. It's human nature. I've been there myself. You're 2-1 down. Yeah, technically you're still in the game, but you feel as if the game's going against you. You feel as if you haven't got a grip on it. You don't know how. You're desperate to get yourself back in the game. You want to go and run and close people down, but you're getting played around. You're looking at players around. You're looking at each other. You're looking in the whites of each other's eyes and thinking, what are we doing here? How exactly are we going to go about this? How are we going to win it back? Why are they playing through us so easily? saw a lot of shouting and screaming last night, a lot of bitching amongst the players I've never seen before, and there's nothing wrong with having a go at a player, but there was an awful lot of that last night, and that's how it kind of manifests itself very quickly. Players can see that they're struggling on the pitch and they're actually uncertain. We don't know how to fix this. And manager had to make a couple of changes on this occasion. They didn't work, but second half it just felt as if there was just that growing realisation amongst the players we're struggling here. We just can't get near these, and that's a horrible position to be in as a kind of professional football. We've all been there. That's tough, and that's hard to fix in a given moment at any time during that second half.
Is it possible, Kenny, for Ireland to go on the hunt for goals and still look after a man like Christian Eriksen?
Yeah, of course. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like we did in the first leg, and you're saying, well, we didn't create enough chances. Absolutely. So this is what I'm talking about. For me, we needed to take the game over in Denmark. Their two centre halves got the ball and walked into our half the pitch because they're only playing up against Daryl Murphy. They just played the ball between themselves and advanced 15 yards into our half the pitch. If we defended very well, invariably won the ball 5 yards, 10 yards outside our penalty box. The problem we had then was getting up the pitch. How are we going to get up the pitch? Murph can't run people in behind. Immediately they're putting the squeeze on us, so you've got to be good enough to play in tight areas on the edge of your box and work the ball up the pitch, or you've got to be amazingly accurate with the ball into Daryl Murphy. He's got to hold it up and buy a bit of time for players to get up the pitch. We couldn't do that. So what's the plan B then? The plan B then is to go and engage their two centre halves 15 yards inside their half and take your game higher up the pitch, force a few mistakes in the central area of the pitch where immediately are closer to the opposition goal and you can break into those spaces, as we have done, lads. If you think back to the goal over in Austria, counter-attacking goal, David Moyler winning at the edge of the 18, breaking quickly, James McLean scoring. Even the big goal in Wales, lads, Jeff Hendrick, was a classic example. Ashley Williams getting the ball on the edge of the 18-yard box. What does Jeff Hendrick do? He's our advanced midfielder, our number 8. Does he drop back to the halfway line, allow him to walk when opposed to the halfway line? He says, no, I'm going to go and engage you. I'm going to put the squeeze on you, put you under a bit of pressure. Are you good enough to play under pressure? Ashley Williams wasn't. We won the ball back. 5 seconds later, the ball's in the goal. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a small tactical tweak. It was that. That's what I would have loved to have seen last night, because I thought there was a bit of value in playing that particular way, keeping as compact as you are behind the ball, keeping the natural shape, which served us so well, but just taking our game, like I said, 20, 30 yards higher up the pitch and really testing their back four, how good footballers they are. Are they good enough to play under pressure 10, 15 yards from their penalty box? That's not easy to do. That's where you kind of force mistakes. Defenders get a bit nervous, make poor decisions in possession, or even rush clearances, smash balls up the length of the pitch. And that's what we wanted them to do last night. We didn't want Eriksen on the ball. But unfortunately he enjoyed too much possession of the ball in key areas of the pitch and ultimately showed his quality.
So why the hell do you think Martin O'Neill did that last night then?
Oh, look, obviously you're asking the wrong man. I think one of the reasons, lads, in terms of the diamond, what it does, it gets two up front. I'm talking about getting more pressure on their two centre halves. I would have done it from the 4-3-3. One of your centre midfielders breaking out in support of Daryl Murphy. That's how you get your two to go and pin the opposition centre halves. Martin might have told, I'll get James up at Murphy. When their two centre halves get the ball, immediately those two players in a position to go and engage the two centre halves, and that's great. And we actually saw a bit of that in the opening period of the game. The problem is when you put that pressure on the two centre halves with the diamond, immediately a centre half will look for an out ball as fullback. And whereas when you play with two natural wingers, if the ball gets played to the fullback, immediately you can get into contact with their fullbacks by virtue of the fact you're playing with wide midfield men. We hadn't got that natural width. We were narrowed up behind it, so it was an easy get out ball for their centre half, just to pop the ball to their fullback who was holding a wide position. And again, it takes time, 2-3 seconds down for the likes of David Moyler and Robbie Brady to get out from that position on the inside to get out and confront the ball. And that's enough time for players to get up, have a touch, get their head up and play the next pass forward. So if you're asking me why, I think that's a reason. You can get a natural pairing up front. You knock the ball back to front, somebody gets a flick on, immediately can pick up a second ball. I think we saw a couple of examples of that, lads, when we went back to front early in the game. Murph winning a couple of headers and James binning around his feet. So if you're asking me reasons, yeah, I think they're kind of reasons. But on the flip side, in terms of when we hadn't got the ball and they had good possession of the ball, I just felt as if we looked really, really open. Yeah. We looked as if we hadn't got that kind of compact, defensive, disciplined shape that we did over in Denmark. Clearly we didn't. We got pulled and we dragged all over the pitch in ways which we hadn't done over in Denmark, and that was probably the biggest factor in the game. That's what cost us.
Kenny, one last question for you before we let you go. We're expecting 5, maybe 6 retirements from this group. Do you have any hope that the current management team will learn from what happened last night, and that with the new squad that they have to go into the Euros, that we can actually look forward with any positivity to the next 2/4 years?
Well, yeah, I always have hope, like, because any management team or any cycle in terms of qualifying campaign, that's exactly what you do. I'm sure Martin Ryan, the coach staff, at some point will be sitting down even over a couple of days and spending time looking back over the whole qualifying campaign in team performance and saying, well, where can the improvement come? I mean, if you were telling me, I'm hearing things like, oh, we're punching above our weight. I mean, we're kidding ourselves in terms of, if we think the performances that we've delivered in this qualifying campaign, and we've done well to get into second place group, don't get me wrong, but there has been one performance in that qualifying campaign that I've watched and thought, you know what, that was spot on. In and out possession of the football, collectively, that was absolutely spot on. That was a top class performance. So I think that for me, there is improvement. I'm sure Martin Roy, the coach staff, will be sitting there, and how do we get that improvement? Are we playing the right system with a better system? Best suit the players, but most importantly, lads, no matter which road we decide to go down in terms of systems and players, for me the biggest factor is do the work. We've got to do the work in terms of that kind of team preparation that I'm talking about, which everybody's doing at club level, at international level. I know we haven't got a huge amount of time in terms of the international squad when they come together, but together 24/7, day in, day out in the lead up to the games, there's enough time there for me to get us to pull the whole thing together and just get us organised into a more, like I said, a more kind of cohesive unit in and out possession of the football. I think for me that's where the big improvement can come. So I'm actually hopeful. I'd be more despondent, lads, if I was looking at those performances thinking that's as good as it gets. I don't think it is. I think there's significantly more to come from this group, and hopefully going forward Martin and Roy can tap into it.
All right, Kenny, great stuff. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads.
Kenny Cunningham helping us to pick through the bones of last night. Loads of comments still coming in. Johnny Buckley says, I think you have to ask why Denmark, a country no bigger than Ireland, have such technically superior players. The problems run deeper than just blaming Martin O'Neill or his tactics. That's like a slightly different version of we just don't have the players.
Yeah, kind of. I'd like to be at a game with Kenny sometime, because especially one that you're emotionally invested in, you're pulling your hair out, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that happens, and Kenny's probably analysing it immediately, exactly pinpointing precisely what just went wrong. It's amazing really, even the morning after, that he's able to kind of give that cold, calculated assessment.
How the training ground stuff isn't being done. Mark Finnegan comment says, is it time to abandon the whole not eligible to play until you're at an English club ethos that seems to exist with the national team? Yes, I know it's a step up, but what would someone like Patrick McElhenney, for example, would Patrick McElhenney have been any worse than McGeady last night? It's hard to pick footballers anywhere who you can say they would definitively have been worse than Aidan McGeady last night. I've been someone who defended McGeady because I think that he got a very hard time from the Ireland fans, but it's hard to make the case this morning that it was a good sub and he played or had any influence on the game.
But the only defence is the alternative to Aidan McGeady. Would that have stopped Ireland losing 5-1? Probably not.
Might have been 3-1.
Maybe. I think it's relatively immaterial at this point.
It is. We still would not be going to Russia in the World Cup. But anyway, time for us to run you through some winners and losers from what the hell happened last night. So our winners, in no particular order, the 1990, 94, 2002 World Cup squads. The after dinner circuit suddenly looks like they've got it all sewn up. There's going to be nobody from 06, nobody from 2010, nobody from 2014, nobody from 2018, and who the hell knows if we're even going to have anybody in 2022. No more Tony O'Donoghue interviews for Martin O'Neill, which makes Tony O'Donoghue a bit of a winner, because that means we don't all have to talk about him anymore. There's also the GAA, they're the big winners. Next year they're going to have a whole slew of games. The hurling championship, the round robin in Leinster and Munster, and then of course the Super 8s later in the summer. Michael Bublé, of course, as well, has been booked for one of the World Cup quarter-final nights. And now there's no prospect of him clashing with the Republic of Ireland.
The other big winner from last night was Snap Pop Beans. If you weren't aware of Snap Pop Beans, Ireland put on a perfect display of the effectiveness of this. They're cheap and you can split them up quite easily. They're little plastic things you can put in the microwave, stir them up, and they're ready to devour straight away. Much more convenient than the tins of beans, particularly the ones without the tin openers that, Simon Kier said are particularly hard to open. So Snap Pop Beans, the way forward. Apparently their stocks are on the rise.
Yeah, and we'd plenty of losers as well. So Seamus Coleman, obviously, not going to get to a World Cup now. It looks like he's 29. I mean, maybe in 4 years' time he'll still be really good, but they couldn't do the thing that they were supposed to do last night for him. The best fans in the world moniker, they were getting hammered by their own people last night for leaving the game 15, 20 minutes early. I'm not sure, maybe I'm in two minds about this. It's like I've never left a game early, except obviously last night because we had to go and interview some fans. That's what we were doing, leaving the game early. But otherwise I've literally never left a game early. Certainly not one I paid for a ticket for where I'm supporting a team.
Another big loser last night was the legacy of the 2002-2003 UEFA Cup. Of course, Martin O'Neill was accused of being lucky during the week. He said, "I'm not lucky. I came second in the 2003 UEFA Cup." He's correct there. It was really a managerial marvel that he managed to get the most out of average talents like Chris Sutton and Henrik Larsson. Potentially that's a bit stained after last night, though, and potentially that managerial piece of genius coming second in the 2003 UEFA Cup isn't as great as it was all cracked up to be. The other big loser, I thought, was the future of the Irish-Russian population. Like there will be no more Vasily McCarthy's in the 2024 primary school classes in Russia, who are all conveniently from parents that came from parents that were based in Volgograd or wherever the Irish team are set to play in the summer next year. So we'll keep a close eye on the Russian-Danish population to see if they can marvel something together for 2024. The other thing really is Denmark's reputation as sound lads. Denmark, science tells us, is actually the happiest country in the world. So happy, despite the fact that they've got one of the highest tax rates in the world. Now they've gone on and they've beaten us and they're even happier now. It's like that really happy, successful friend that you have that you just want to punch in the face. That's what Denmark is. So screw you and your happiness and your good-natured vibes towards us. You're just too happy and in too good humour. So the sound lads tag of Denmark, I've taken it away.
A lot of you might have been watching the Viva Fans studio last night. We were broadcasting live on Facebook. Andy Lee was there. Ruth Fahey was also there, and she's got some pretty interesting things to talk about in the aftermath of the game, as the post-mortem was beginning.
Part of the problem now for Martin O'Neill, assuming he does stay on, is that there's a change in the setup of qualification for the European Championships. We don't have another qualifier for 18 months. A lot of these players are in their 30s, whether they want to stay on, whether they want to keep going, to somehow keep that motivation there in what is going to be a long gap. It's going to be a very difficult job.
You know, one thing that's huge is that I don't think we're going to have the Wesley Houlihan argument any longer. He's 35 years old, so Eamon Dunphy's consistent spiel about him will be over. You're looking at Daryl Murphy, 34 as well. A couple of the players around the park, maybe 5 or 6 altogether, going to be moving on. And where are the rest going to come from? I know that's a discussion for a whole different day. But yeah, it's time for Martin O'Neill. He's got another 2 years to sit back and regroup and have a look at that.
All right, Garry Breen is with us. Gary, good morning to you. I was just saying there that one of the big winners from this whole thing is the World Cup team from 2002, because your nostalgia suddenly becomes this absolutely amazing thing that we're never going to get to experience again.
Morning, lads. Yeah, it is frustration because, you know, the feeling this morning is more just real gut-wrenching, the fact that we haven't got there. We expected so much and it just couldn't have gone any worse. And you're right, we look back on that and it's far too long for us to not beat a World Cup. Is just such a difficult thing to take in. But unfortunately, in the end, we literally got what we deserved.
Yeah, talk to us a bit about why you think last night happened. We had Kenny on a little bit earlier on, and he said that from the moment that he saw the team was lining up in the diamond formation, he really had a bad feeling about it because that wasn't something that the players looked comfortable in.
The problem with the diamond formation, and what I found difficult to understand that he went with that last night, is that Denmark had identified exposing us in the wide areas with fullbacks. So when you play a diamond, you're looking to secure that middle area to get an overload in there, but you are weak in them wide areas. And it just seemed to compound the matter that he went with a diamond, knowing that the fullbacks of Denmark were bombing all the time. We've seen their centre-halves stepping in and hitting them diags. It caused us problems in Copenhagen in terms of the double save that Randolph made. So when you then saw that selection, especially with Mylan not in the base of it as well, you're just thinking it didn't make any sense. And I think Martin O'Neill obviously is going to take a lot of stick over the next coming days in terms of explaining his tactics, but that's part of the course of being an Ireland manager, being an Ireland player. It's a great honour, but it's a huge responsibility, and you have to say that the supporters will feel as if they've been badly let down.
Okay, so if we hadn't played a diamond last night, would the result have been materially different?
Yeah, I think without a doubt it would have been. I think the fact that it went to 5-1 is a case of us trying to chase the game. The substitutions seemed to make absolutely no sense. Why you would take off your two holding midfielders, as if you can't get in the game just because you've got people who give you that protection. They just give you a platform then to go on and play. I didn't understand that. I couldn't, for the life of me, understand why he took Clark off to put Ward at centre-back. I didn't understand what that gave you. What is Stephen going to give you at centre-half that Kieran can't? And it was just so many things like that where you're watching the game and you're looking at an initial team selection, you're thinking, OK, let's just hope that James McLean can have an influence in and around their centre-halves, harassing them, busying them, but he didn't. And then you're seeing the tactical substitutions after that and you're thinking, this doesn't add up. And I think that's why you probably saw the frustration of the supporters who will back the team, the management all the way. But when you're seeing those type of decisions being made, it's very difficult.
Just a quick one on the corner, Gary. That was obviously the turning point. Christie it'll go down in history as just an error from Christie, but Ireland should have done better to clear that, shouldn't they?
Listen, this has been a problem throughout Martin O'Neill's reign, set pieces against. And I alluded to it in the build-up to the first game, saying, listen, let's not have this tie settled on a lack of organisation from a set piece, from a corner. And lo and behold, it happens that way. And people will say, well, listen, it went on to go 5-1. That was a key moment. When we're 1-0 up, they would have panicked, I'm sure of it. The crowd would have got behind us. It would have been very difficult because they would have known how difficult it is to break us down. As soon as that goal was scored, everything changed. And the organisation was ridiculous. People talk about Hendricks not going out there to make a 2v2 out on the short corner. But the guy who scored the goal, he's on his own on the edge of the box prior to that ball even being kicked. We're overloaded. We have one man marking two on the edge of the box. And I'm looking at that situation thinking, how can that possibly be so? And people might say, listen, it's the players not executing it. Well, if they don't execute it, that's a result of you not doing it enough on the training field. It's as simple as that. And that was the frustration for me. And I'd seen it throughout the campaign. We've seen it against Scotland in the previous one. We've seen it against Austria Punishers. But not even just those goals. We have been so vulnerable at set pieces and notably corners, bearing in mind we've got dominant people like Clark, Duffy. Any team that plays a short corner was always going to cause us problems, and it proved that way.
Do you think it pours a bit more oxygen into Craig Bellamy's words that Martin O'Neill just doesn't practice set pieces and now it's ended up costing us?
Well, listen, you don't even have to talk to Craig. Talk to Richard Dunn, who would have worked with him at Aston Villa. He gets big, strong men to defend crosses, and they're very good at it. He's done it throughout his career, be it at Leicester with the likes of Taggart, Elliott, those type of guys. Then he goes to Celtic with Balbo Baldo, Mialbi, those guys. And he's doing it now with Duffy with the Irish team. The problem is, if you don't put the ball in the box and you have to give those players a decision to make, then you're in trouble. They were never going to float balls in the box knowing how dominant Duffy is. They're always going to play it short. And for us to be caught out like that's not acceptable at this level.
So we're putting that slew of evidence together about the lack of practice and it's evidence-based over the course of two campaigns. Put that together with what Kenny was saying about the players on the pitch getting very narky with each other because they didn't really understand their own roles within that diamond, because effectively he was making the point they haven't done that often enough. They haven't honed that practice to a point where it's second nature to them. They're all a bit like, oh, that was your responsibility. It doesn't really seem like... It seems like that's Martin O'Neill's responsibility, and he has to take responsibility for that.
It is Martin O'Neill's responsibility. It's the manager's responsibility, whoever that is, for whatever team, whatever country, whatever club team it is. And you're quite right. I think in terms of being exposed in the diamond, Olsen did it to us in the Euros in the second half, where James McCarthy's lack of fitness going into the tournament was exposed. He couldn't get out there quick enough. I think Kolarov did it to us as well, where John Waters, who puts an unbelievable shift. There's not many players as good as him, but he's a forward player. He don't stay with a runner. They score. And you're just looking at it and thinking, I've no doubt that the Denmark management team have looked at that and said, listen, there's a vulnerability about this Irish team. Yes, we're strong centrally because we pack it in sheer numbers. It's not a case of we've got incredible defenders. We just load the area and make ourselves difficult to beat. And you're right. To have that type of system, you've got to work on it. There's got to be release passes where suddenly the ball goes to a certain position, boys release themselves from their disciplined defensive structure and then go and engage. Kenny talked about going and putting a bit more pressure on their centre halves, and I agree with him. And people say, well, listen, you have to play two up front. You don't have to do that. You just play that five in midfield, and one guy will know when he goes, and they'll adjust behind him, the rest of them. But I think you're right. I think it is well, I know it's right. It's the responsibility of the manager and the coaching team. And people can argue that when you go along with the international team, you don't get enough time to work on it. You do. Maybe you don't have to put the work on in the training field, but you can certainly do it on the video analysis. You can do it all that type of way. And you're right. I think that the players did turn a little bit on each other, and that really surprised me because we talked about a great team ethic. I'd identified it under Martin O'Neill that there's a real togetherness with that group. But when it went wrong, a lot of those players started digging each other out, and I wasn't comfortable seeing it.
Yeah, that's kind of the most worrying thing about this. It looks like a 2-year deal is on the cards / has been agreed in principle. So O'Neill's not going to change now. What changes Irish football culture over the next while? Do the players need to kind of say, the senior players in that group say, look, we need to work on these things a little bit more, and we need a more open sense of communication about who's going to be starting, what formation we're going to be using, you know, because traditionally we hear those stories that O'Neill would walk into the Aston Villa changing room and name the team, and there would be 3 centre backs, and they'd be like, are you playing right back, or what's the story? And it's like, go and work it out, work it out yourselves.
Jeff, if you talk to any of the guys who've worked under Martin O'Neill, and I do it quite a lot, because those guys from the Celtic days and also Leicester days, they talk about him with such great respect. And I say, okay, well, listen, tell me what he's actually good at then, in turn. What's his skill set? Because as a student of football, I want to know why he's producing and why he's been successful. And everyone would tell you that the key things about him is his motivation. And I've said this so many times, you don't need to motivate these players to play for Ireland. They're living their dream. There's no motivation needed there. But what I've identified, what Martin is very good at, is his recruitment in terms of getting experienced players, problem solvers, who can sort out problems on the pitch. He's not able to do that with Ireland because he can only pick from the pool of players that he has. So it's not a case of him going out and fixing it that way in the transfer market. But going forward, there's no way in the world those players are going to go up to Martin O'Neill and say, listen, we want to do it this way. He's not going to accept that. He's too dominant. He's too strong. And that's his right as a manager. He's not going to allow players to come up and tell him how he wants to play. And you're right, I don't think Martin will change, but I would agree with what Kenny said. These players, people talk about him not having a massive pool of talent to choose. These players are capable of so much more than they've produced throughout his reign. Not just the fact that they got beaten so heavily last night, but even throughout the campaign. When you're looking after the ball, we're talking about Harry Arter. Every time he got it, his remit and playing that holding midfield role, certainly in the first game, was obviously a defensive responsibility that is not natural to him. But every time he got the ball, he just shelled it. He didn't pass, didn't look to play it at all. And this guy's unrecognisable when you see the guy who controls the ball, the tempo at Bournemouth. He's normally so accomplished on the ball, and that has to come from the coaching.
The eternal optimist might say that last night will be such a wake-up call that things will have to change. But from what you're saying there, some sort of revolution in Martin O'Neill's thinking just isn't going to happen.
No, listen, I think Martin O'Neill has a way that's been successful for him throughout his career. I don't think he's going to change. I think managers will evolve as such in terms of what's happening as football develops and changes, systems and what have you. But I'm not convinced that he's going to change. And he'll argue, like he did last night in the press conference, he doesn't like anyone questioning him. He'll argue that his record is very strong. But you're right, I had one of your, the guys, one of the callers coming in and saying about Martin O'Neill takes the praise when we win, but doesn't want to take it when we lose. Well, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny felt relatively optimistic at the end of our chat there. Chatting to you now, I'm absolutely devastated about the future of Irish football here. Like, what the hell happens?
No, I don't mean it in terms of, you asked me the question, will he change? I don't think he will. But if you're talking about future of Irish football, then we need to understand what he's done behind the scenes then, not just on the football pitch in terms of the first team. What has he done to improve the infrastructure? As a man who's so successful as a manager, our two most famous footballing sons at the head of our coaching in Ireland. So what have you done behind the scenes? Michael O'Neill at Northern Ireland's done an awful lot. It'd be interesting to see how much Martin has done.
All right, I didn't realise that about Michael O'Neill. That is interesting. But let me ask you this. Do the coaches then have any responsibility or opportunity to do a good bit more? So if O'Neill doesn't really worry too much about what's happening in those coaching sessions, could those coaching sessions just evolve naturally into, okay, so next time we play the Diamond lads, this is exactly what everybody has to do. And next time we concede a corner, this is the role of everybody. Like, can you fix that? Can the coaches fix that?
Well, that feels as if, like, you know, the horse is bolted now. What are we talking about? We haven't done that. It's incredible to think that we haven't done that in a game of that magnitude, that you would have nailed down set pieces, as you rightly said, that corner. How could it be such a delay that Hendricks takes that long to go out? But initially, how can McLean have two people on the edge of the box? We're setting it up where we've actually got three spare men. We've got Christie on the back post, we've got Myler on the 6-yard box, and we've got Hendricks in around the near post. You can't have three spare men in them situations. It's basic. You're going to be overloaded. And that is the concern, that when you're setting up these set pieces, and in my infant coaching career, I'd have had that responsibility. You've got to work out what suits you, and then you've got to work out how the opposition will expose that. Now, I know that we look at our team and think, well, listen, put the ball in the box, Duffy's so dominant, that's brilliant. But then you've got to think, okay, the opposition are going to recognise that, and what are they going to do to try and expose us? They're going to play it short. So then you coach the lads to say, listen, this is what they're going to do, this is how you react, and this is how we adjust. I didn't see any of that.
That's very worrying, really. Miguel Delaney was making the point on Twitter last night, I think in a piece in The Independent today, about the fact that this argument is out there at the moment, we don't have the players, and he says it's really irritating, even allowing for the fact Irish football does need a massive reform. Most of international football is actually quite bad. Any half-organised team does well, any team with modern ideas does better.
I like Miguel Delaney in terms of his articles. I like reading his stuff, but he's spot on. But I don't think it's a genius to work out. Don't keep telling us we haven't got the players. We have got the players. They can do so much more than what they have done, and everyone will turn around. And anyone who's not really an Ireland supporter, but is just watching it from afar, and I speak to the likes of Chris Sutton, John Hartson, them Celtic days. They look at this Ireland squad and think, well, listen, they're not as good as your team in 2002 or that time. So what Martin O'Neill's done is incredible. And I always have this argument with them all the time. They could do so much more. People keep talking about we don't have players who play in the Premier League. If you put our starting 11 out, the majority of them are Premier League players. So that argument is redundant. These players are capable of so much more than what we have seen. And Martin O'Neill's flippant comment that we don't have a Robbie Keane and stuff like that. Well, I'd argue if we did have a Robbie Keane, do you think he would be able to score in the way we set that team up? I wouldn't be too sure.
Yeah, it's almost like the harking back to another era. I mean, maybe if we did Damien Duff, things would change. That might be one of those players where you could actually point to somebody as an individual who would be able to transform how the team plays. But there's no one else really who you can kind of shoehorn into that team and say, oh, we're one player short here. It does seem like it's a systems failure and maybe a failure of ambition.
Well, I don't think there's any lack of ambition. I think they're desperate to do well. I'd never query the management in terms of that, or the players in terms of their desire.
Ambition.
But these players can, but these players are capable of so much more. I don't care what. Harry Arter is the biggest point of concern for me. This is a guy who you give the responsibility to play holding midfield, and I can understand what he's done. He's seen the remit and he's just took it to the extreme in terms of like just get it, clear it, and we'll defend. But if you watch him playing for Bournemouth, this is the guy who kept Jack Wilshere out of the team last season for Bournemouth. Everyone's talking in England now, he's the saving grace for their midfield, but he couldn't even get a game ahead of Arter. But the difference is Arter's coached day in, day out in terms of taking the ball in tight situations and having and knowing where his teammates are going to step in, make angles, make passes. And it's an organised team. And when you watch him playing for Ireland, he looks up, he doesn't see nothing, so he absolutely just boots it away. And that's the problem. We look at players and you think, well, listen, these are guys who are doing so well in the Premier League. Why are we not able to get them to do that for us? Because of the way we play? No, I'm not having it. I just think that it's not a valid argument to say we don't have the players.
Do you think Martin O'Neill should be given another term to continue with what we're doing at the moment?
This is a difficult one. That's not for me to make. I think the dust needs to settle. I think people need to take the emotion out of it, which is a silly thing to say because it is an emotional thing. But certainly let the dust settle for a few weeks, but then review what he's actually done throughout this campaign. Now, everyone will look at the fact that we got to Euros, which is a brilliant achievement, but we finished third in our group to get there. So that is, I'm not taking anything away from him, but we did finish third in the group. You've got to look at how this campaign's gone in terms of we've got to this stage. I mean, that iconic game to win away in Wales was a brilliant achievement. It was fantastic. They'll live in the memories. The only problem is it's meant nothing in the end. That's the frustration. But I think, as I alluded to earlier, we have to look at what has been gone on behind the scenes, not just on the pitch. Obviously, ultimately, you are judged on that. But we have to know, what is he doing? What infrastructure is he putting in place? Bearing in mind how successful he's been as a manager in terms of bringing the next group of players through, and even younger ones than that in terms of putting an infrastructure in place for all the coaching network for us Irish team to produce players that we know we can do.
Garry, great stuff. Thanks very much. Brilliant. Thanks a million.
Thanks, guys.
It's Garry Breen, very strong there. Very thought-provoking. I'm worried.
Yeah, it is. Like there does seem to be kind of no hope in terms of seeing an Ireland team that we can actually enjoy, or that a potential neutral fan could enjoy. I do think we'll qualify for Euro 2020, which might give us a platform to go on.
Everybody's going to Euro 2020.
Well, that's the thing. like I do think there needs to be a plan for 2022 at this point. I know it is. Even like how many teams qualify for Euro 2020, it is still getting ahead of yourselves to plan that far ahead and just like build a foundation for 2022. But I wouldn't necessarily deem it to be the worst idea. Like
the specific points that he was making there about the corners, like of course Denmark aren't going to just pump the ball forward. They did a little bit in the first leg, and clearly they went, that didn't work. Let's try something different. And we seemed hopelessly underprepared for short corner routines, which you see up and down the length of. You see it in the Phoenix Park on a Sunday.
Yeah, it is beyond belief that there will be 3 spare men out of the corner.
We were asking you guys on Twitter to vote on O'Neill's future, and wow, it was early on when the voting had just started, it seemed kind of fairly evenly 50-50 split. Now it's 58% say no. They don't want to see Martin O'Neill lead Ireland through to the Euro 2020 campaign. Personally, I think I don't mind if Martin O'Neill is our manager for the next 2 years. I think that you would hope there is some sense of learning from this campaign.
But that's the problem. I don't think there will be, judging by what Breen is saying there. Like, the one thing is, I know I'm going to refer to much bigger nations here, but you look at Germany and their struggles earlier on this century, same with Spain. You obviously look at Brazil a couple of years ago, and Brazil are one of the favourites now for next year's World Cup. They're not going to get beaten 7-1 again. A huge defeat like this should kickstart, I'm not going to say a revolution, because obviously they've got all the resources in the world and a huge population, but at least some sort of positive groupthink that might lead to the benefit of Irish football. Like, this seems like the perfect time for that to happen, and it seems like the Qatar World Cup might be kind of an end goal for that, like to put together a 5-year plan and try and get something together from the group of players that are at under 17 level now. Obviously, when we get to grassroots, this is going to be a conversation we're going to have a lot over the next few months. When it gets to grassroots, that's a different story. But we need to think about how we're going to qualify for the next World Cup at this point. And it is the players who are already maturing, and potentially that's a big problem in itself.